Yeah, weird. Okay, weird is oh gosh, Professor, I'm even surprised we're talking today after last night. Were you on vacation or something? Or did you even
No,
watch it?
I my cousin was getting married, so I and her wedding was up in Yosemite, and I was playing guitar. I played guitar while she walked down the aisle. So
During the presidential debate?
yeah, that's what I was doing yesterday. So I was at a in Yosemite Valley playing guitar for a bride walking down the aisle while the presidential debate was taking place.
I think you were the smartest person in America because supposedly, I don't know, 6 out of 10 or 7 out of 10 Americans watched part of the debate, which is crazy. And
Yeah.
you were like one of the smartest people not to watch the debate. Have you heard about it? I mean, it was
Yeah,
fine. It was,
not
yeah.
sort of. I actually even had my phone completely off, so I was completely
Yeah.
cut off from the world until this morning when I started watching the news, and then I had a 2 hour drive back
And
home.
weren't you on a motorcycle?
No, I took my car because I had to take uh, guitars with me. So
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
so
Yeah,
I
well, you can't do the Easy Rider look. A guitar fits on a motorcycle.
yeah, yeah, I should have. But in a suit also would have been,
Okay.
not the safest apparel to wear on a motorcycle. The
That was
light
funny.
cover
I
stuff.
didn't even know you had a car. I actually kind of thought you were just, you're in California. I thought you were a motorcyclist. That's
Well,
fun.
I have two cars. I have a car and
Wow.
a truck to haul around my motorcycles. Um,
Man, you are a conservative's conservative. Do you have a Trump bumper sticker on your back of your truck?
no, no bumper stickers on any vehicles.
How about a gun rack?
No,
Well,
but
that's because you're a Californian.
well, gun racks are not super common these days because of they kind of invite theft. So
Yeah, I
guns,
know. I feel like I'm Biden now with old age. When I was growing up in Colorado, there were gun racks all over. People had gun
oh,
racks in high school, though.
yeah, I was going to say that we had them at my high school, but
Yeah.
now you would never see it in. I mean, you don't put anything valuable in sight in any car in California.
Yeah, that is funny. I really do feel like Biden there for a second because oh, everybody's got a gun rack. We're in Colorado, and now that you pointed out, I'm not sure I've seen a lot of gun
No,
racks
the thing
recently.
that people
Oh,
do now is they have these essentially like false or beds that you build into your truck bed that have like slide out
mm,
drawers for all of your
yeah,
ARs and that sort of thing.
right. Well, that's I guess nice to have if you need an AR. Okay, so Professor, I'm not as I mentioned to you briefly offline. I'm not positive we should be recording this. And you follow my train of thought for a second. Um, I have no, not concerned, but I have some angst after last night, as every single American has, especially Democrats. But I'm not a Democrat. It's not my party. I didn't vote for him. So, I don't have as much angst as my Democratic friends. And I don't want to defend Trump either. If you listen to Trump, besides his view on abortion, which he apparently is fairly close to me, he's pro choice. He believes in unrestricted abortions up to some point. He hasn't announced it's about 6 weeks, 10 weeks, 15 weeks, some, immediate pregnancy. He is open to that or he supports that. He also supports it in rape, incest, and health, life of the mother. He didn't say health of the mother. I want health of the mother as well, in addition to life. But he and I are pretty close on abortion, apparently. And I also think Roe versus Wade was wrong. It should have been back to the states. So, besides the former president and I agreeing on abortion, I don't like his stuff either. I think his views on NATO and Ukraine are really dangerous. I think he's mostly right on um, immigration, although I don't like his style at all. I think he's mean spirited, and I don't like that at all. But his views align a little bit more with mine than Biden's. You're probably more with Biden than Trump on immigration. Anyway, the listening to the substance of the like, if I was to read the transcripts instead of watch it, I might have a slightly different view. But besides all those caveats that I just gave you, it was a complete disaster last night. It was a mess. There is no way out of the 350, 60 million of us that those are our two best people to run the most powerful government in the history of the world. Now, did you catch any of that? Do you disagree? And
Well,
by
I
the way,
listened.
remember you're the historian, so talk
Yeah,
to us.
yeah. So I did have a 2 hour drive to listen to the debate and then listen to an hour and change of selected commentary while I was also getting dressed this morning. So, I have been immersed in it for the past 3 or 4 hours. Uh, so, um, but I did not watch it live.
It was way worse live.
Yeah, although, gosh, some of the audio, some of the segments, just listening to it were so painful that I just almost couldn't stand to keep listening. I wanted to
Almost all
skip
almost
ahead.
all Biden, or was some bad stuff at Trump too?
Well, Trump was mostly his normal, incoherent self,
Right.
and in a way, he has these verbal tics um, that kind of get him through. And so we've already got that kind of baked in, but he hasn't changed. So
Right.
um, his level was already set, and he managed to, kind of do what he always does. So I don't think anybody was surprised
Right.
by
Yeah,
um,
he was him. He was
Trump,
himself. So
yeah, him being himself. Yeah, but no,
now,
it's
now, but by the way, let me I don't know why Jake's not criticizing me. I mentioned before you logged on or while you were logging on that we don't know Biden very well. And he goes, "What do you mean we don't know Biden well? He's been a U.S. senator for wherever." And Jonah Goldberg, and he ripped into me. But my point is, no, Biden has been pretty muted as president. I don't know him. I met him 10 years ago, and I was pretty impressed with him actually 10 years ago. But I don't know. I was really surprised how bad Biden was last night. I was shocked. I mean, people say he's been bad, but I figured that was conservative, campaign talk. No, he was bad last night. Just period.
well, I think it's been, I would just say that this last night was demonstrating that what people have been saying about him is true. That
Right.
you remember that um, controversy over um, the audio from his interview regarding his documents case, and people
Oh
got
yeah.
really mad at that DOJ interviewer for his characterization of Biden in it, and now it's like, yeah, crystal clear that that guy was telling the truth.
Well, you mean the special prosecutor, not just
Right,
interviewer.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
And there's no doubt why Republicans want to impeach, I guess, the attorney general for not releasing the tapes or whatever, because they want
Well,
to make
that's
them look bad on
political.
TV. But we don't need to make them look bad on TV with those tapes anymore. You looked bad last night, so we now know.
Yeah, there's almost nothing that um yeah, the question is not, I mean, I just don't think there's any, again, I'm a historian, I shouldn't talk about the future, but I just don't, there's no way that he's president of the United States in a year. I I just
Really?
I don't
Now
see.
that's I called you a futurist in the past, and you got mad at me, and now all of a sudden you're being a futurist.
I,
Really?
I just don't. I don't know. But then again, when the alternative is Donald Trump, um, maybe people vote for him. I mean, it, I've always found it strange that, and I found it strange even during the Hillary Clinton campaign, that, like, if somebody who is Donald Trump, and now like a convicted felon who was an incompetent president who tried to overthrow the government of the United States, and
He's
you're
now the front
losing to him, you
runner. Right.
should that should cause you to take stock.
Right.
But the fact that it doesn't, the fact that that Democrats are like, nope, full steam ahead. The American people would really love us. You're like, what? Are you
Okay.
crazy?
Now,
Like,
Professor, I had a historical question first, but let me keep on contemporary politics. And we've talked about this in past conversations as well. I don't know the magic number of powerful people in the United States. it's not 360 million people. There's not everybody is equally powerful. So that's one extreme. It's not 300 million people. It's not 200 million. It's not 100 million. It could be as high as a million, I guess. But there are probably, I don't know. I truly have no idea how many powerful people there are. My guess is like 50,000 people are really powerful in the United States. And that includes every elected official and every past elected official and every media person and every rich CEO and every academic. And maybe it's 100,000. I don't know. But I mean, it's a fairly small number. Agree or disagree? Or are there 20 million really powerful people in America? What's your
Well,
instinct?
well, power is diffuse. So the way
Ah,
it was
that's the
set
reason
up,
I'm bringing that up. So you're kind of ruining my thunder already. I was hoping you
sorry.
wanted to do it.
I
But
just mean that those people are powerful in one sense. They can shape opinion or spend money on things or build
yeah,
things
but
or buy things,
I'm not
but
talking about family power. I mean, sure, every individual mom and dad is powerful
but
within their family.
nothing can stand up to the power of the American voter united. So the ultimate power in the United States is still, if anything, the American people decide to do.
Oh, so
Uh,
okay, you're talking 120 million, but those
yeah,
120 million are influenced by how
yeah,
many? I mean,
yeah. So the United States of America is a political entity, and all political power eventually devolves to the voter, and therefore, whatever it is that influences the voter would be how I define power. Um,
power. Okay. Well, I love this conversation actually because every citizen, at least I mean thousands of people I know. I saw it. I was tracking them live and people are sending me messages and emails and I don't know. I talk to a couple hundred people regularly. And then maybe like over the course of a year, I talk to thousands of people, but I talk to a couple hundred people regularly. I mean, almost every week. And mostly it's typing, not talking. But um, so I have a pretty good sense of Colorado. I don't of Mississippi or Montana, but Colorado I have a pretty good sense because it's across the spectrum, and and many of those couple hundred people are really powerful. I mean, they're congressmen and past governors and major CEOs, and you know, I know a lot of cool people. I'm telling you, Professor, the insiders of the Democratic Party are in a panic right now. And I'm glad I'm not one of them because I don't know what the hell they're doing.
they
Whether
should
they're
be. I mean,
right.
what I said is that there is no way that their nominee is going to win the presidency. So what do you do now? I
Yeah,
mean,
they're in a panic. Are they gonna? Do you punt and go to Kamala? I'm not sure she's gonna win. She would win.
no.
Do they pump and go to Buttigieg, who I think is crazy talented? But I don't think he'd win. What's that guy? Your governor. He's crazy talented. I don't think he'd win.
I think, well, I don't know. I think Newsom could win.
Do you actually think Newsom might win again? Well, against Trump, but not against somebody else, but against Trump.
Yeah, and he's a very skilled debater.
He
I
is.
think, oh yeah,
No,
I
he's,
think, and he also has no morals. In
yeah,
this, he has the same superpower that Trump has. He has no
yeah.
moral at all. He
And he
is.
was a good defender of the president last night. I was watching him for 20 minutes or so, and he was pretty articulate and making a good case for him. I don't think it was a compelling case, but it was a good case for
I'm just saying
Biden.
that if Newsom is such an X factor that if he was on a debate stage with Donald Trump, and he knew that in order to win the presidency, what he had to do was a certain performance and he had to say X, Y, and Z. He would go out there and he would say it and it would sound convincing. And I mean, and he would do or say anything that he needed to do or say in order to win the presidency because he
Okay,
has absolutely no moral scruples.
cool. Let me pause this colloquial. I sound like Biden
Colloquial,
again.
yeah,
Yeah, anytime you make a mistake, you can just say, I'm pulling a Biden.
yeah, yeah.
Um, so let me pause this with a interjection with a historian, Stephen Tootle. Professor Tootle, has there been other debates throughout American history that have a candidate that's just completely out of shape, out of pocket, mentally
No,
or physically,
this is
or
the worst.
no? There's not a single. Wait, I know you're a historian in American politics and in American history, but there. I mean, so you have expertise supposedly,
No,
and you're authoritatively saying
Yep.
There's not, but there were some pretty bad presidents, and I assume there were some pretty bad presidential candidates.
Right. But
No
there's
one's
a
worse
difference.
than this.
Well, I would say, there have been bad debate performances by my standards of how I would judge, what I want a president to say or do, or that sort of thing. But that would involve me making some kind of a judgment on how I value the presidency, or how I weigh, certain things. I mean, I remember thinking, so President Obama's first debate against Romney was bad. Michael Dukakis had a few bad moments with
Oh, bad
George
moments.
Bush,
No, I
and
was old enough. Really bad.
Walter Mondale, had a few bad minutes with Reagan. Same with Carter.
Didn't
Uh,
Reagan have a really bad first performance?
yeah, but it wasn't this. It was nothing. I mean, that's what I mean. Like nothing on this scale. And then when you go back to the era of um, pre-televised debate era, well, you get into an era where presidents didn't really campaign before that. So presidents didn't campaign, and therefore they didn't engage in debates with one another.
You
I think,
go ahead and pause because this is a different talk. And you've mentioned it before in previous conversations, but that still doesn't resonate with me. I wasn't alive, so that's why
yeah,
we have historic. What do you mean presidents didn't campaign? Just
I
educate
mean, it
us for
was
a little.
considered unseemly for the person who was going to be president to actively campaign for president. So people would campaign on their behalf, but the actual candidate would not campaign. Um, and
Really? Until what? Until when?
Well, I mean, essentially, it was because of the example of Washington. The key, thing, if you were president, was that you were supposed to be someone who did not want power. And
Oh my! What
so
a
the idea
oh,
that you would go out and actively seek it was seen as something that would disqualify you from office.
Jake,
So
write this
therefore, other
down. We gotta do a cut quote on this, and then put Professor Tootle's name under it. People
I'm
need to
not. I mean,
understand
this is not. I'm not saying anything
this
profound. This is
historically.
just basic, history 101 stuff. Like
Do you
I'm not
think the average 100 plus a million Americans, 150 million Americans that vote know that?
no, but
Right.
that's
It is why we need historians.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. But I mean, anybody who has read anything about the presidency. So the change really comes with the so-called modern presidency, which some people say started with McKinley, but other people would say, you can have your debates between it being either McKinley or um, Theodore Roosevelt or Woodrow Wilson, and then with the next sort of big change came with Franklin Roosevelt, who obviously the break with the precedent of Washington is him deciding to seek a third term, meant now we're in an era where presidents want power, don't want to give it up, and it's politically acceptable for a president to um, actively campaign and want to be president. And
well, that's not that long ago.
no, but and then Truman's campaign of 48 was really a good example of a kind of reserved candidate going up against a populist who would say anything. I mean, Harry Truman's 1948 campaign was dirty. It was nasty. I mean, it was pretty vile, actually, how Truman campaigned. We think of it as being kind of charming and cute because, oh, give him hell, Harry. But if you look at what he was actually saying, he was unhinged. And
Like
Dewey,
Trump unhinged or Biden unhinged?
it was, I'd say it's, he was kind of a combination. I would say he wasn't as bad as Trump, but he was Biden plus a little Trump. Uh, you know, I mean, he accused Tom, Dewey was one of the most respectable and respected public servants, and would have been one of the greatest presidents in American history. And Harry Truman was out there saying, if you elect him, it's just like electing the Nazis into power. I mean, really outrageous stuff. And it wasn't getting covered in the press because they thought that because Truman was so far behind in the polls, they stopped covering him. And then he really just went nuts. And it turns out that there are a lot of people who love that sort of thing. You go and talk to a bunch of Polish refugees and you tell them, hey, I'm the guy who's going to help defeat the Nazis who are trying to take over America. And the farm, that was the last vote where the farm vote really had held sway. And then you had him helped a little bit by, and this is another weird thing. He's one of the few candidates who was helped by having third and fourth party opposition, because it made him look like more of a moderate. So, the Dixiecrats split from him, and then the communists split from him. So you couldn't say he was a communist because the communists all left, and you couldn't say that he was a rabid racist because the racists all left. So in some ways, he could still be perceived a little bit as a moderate, grab a little bit of the moderate vote, grab the farm vote, grab the New Deal vote, hold together the New Deal coalition for a little while longer, and then it was enough to carry him to victory. But it was so scary. That's what made one of the things that made Eisenhower decide to run for president. Is he thought if Harry Truman could actually win the election of 1948, the two-party system in America might be collapsing, and I need to run for president in order to save the Republican Party and save the two-party system in America. Because to Eisenhower is just unthinkable that someone like Truman could beat someone like Dewey. And so Dewey was one of the backers who helped really pushed for Eisenhower to run, because Eisenhower didn't really want to run, but he decided it was his patriotic duty to run in 52.
So, Professor, would this shock you to say I don't know any of this stuff?
No, I mean, it's fine.
No, but you know me pretty well. I'm fairly well read.
Yeah.
Fairly well educated. I don't know any of this stuff.
Well, even, people who care about history, we tend to sort of only remember the bumper stickers,
I like Ike.
Yeah. And I
Bart,
I always say that.
Hold on, let me interrupt. Bart, do you know all this stuff?
I'm kind of aware of it. I knew that it was kind of the practice for presidents not to actively campaign until kind of the end of the 19th century, I guess.
Yeah.
What are the Lincoln-Douglas debates?
But that was senators. Before. Yeah, that was the U.S. Senate, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So you had political debates, just not for president.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was just kind of an unseemly thing to be doing.
I didn't know that.
Did you know
about Truman and Eisenhower? Did you know all this?
Oh, Truman and Eisenhower? Yeah, vaguely. I don't know it in the detail that, it's being described right now. But I know, Eisenhower was talking about running as a Democrat. And he, obviously made the decision that, based on what Stephen's describing, that he decided, okay, the Republican Party is kind of messed up here. And we really need two parties.
Well, the story's even better than that, because it was one of these things that we didn't even know about until. I love this little story. So, Truman did offer. So, well, I don't know how to build the right amount of suspense with this story, but I love this. So, both Truman and Eisenhower later wrote about an encounter between the two men, and according to Dwight Eisenhower, Truman had offered the presidency to Eisenhower, saying that he would run as the vice president and Eisenhower could be the president on the Democratic ticket. And Eisenhower said this happened in a meeting, with President Truman. And Truman said, no, that never happened. I never offered him the presidency or offered to. And for many years, historians debated this issue, who's telling the truth and, who's lying, and people took sides and all this. And then in the Truman Library, they discovered this book that had never been cataloged or indexed because it wasn't labeled. It was like a bill of lading or like a ledger of some kind. But somebody finally opened it up and looked at it, and it was Harry Truman's diary from exactly that period. And in his own diary, he wrote, "I offered Eisenhower the presidency."
You are lying,
really?
Truman was lying. Yeah.
Wow.
So it was one of those moments where we actually discovered a document that proved that one of them was telling the truth and one of them was lying. And Eisenhower never really, he only considered running as a Democrat if they would nominate him without having to run as a Democrat. So, and of course, in other words, if he could run on both party tickets. So he is unique in that sense, in that he's the only person who was essentially offered the nomination of both parties. And when he didn't really want to run, and it took a group of Republicans who were supporters of his, who organized these rallies, and they had people film these, we want Eisenhower rallies all over the country to try to draft him to run for president. And it was only after, a group of supporters met with him and they showed him these movies they'd made of these, draft Eisenhower, rallies, that he said, okay, I will agree to, run for president.
Okay, so you're getting back to one of my two or three main themes of today. And that is, and you want to let me pin you down. I feel like one of the debate interviewers last night. Neither candidate would help. They'd answer however they wanted to answer it. Seriously, how many powerful people are there that influence presidential politics in America? Is it 1,000, 5,000, 50,000, 500,000? I mean, clearly, if you can write a $50 million check to Trump, that's pretty influential. So there's one. But how many other people are there that? Because the reason I'm asking, Professor, is both on the left and I shouldn't say that. Yeah, no, not the left and the right. They're not anarchists or authoritarians or communists or social. They're not crazy. They're real people. They're Democrats and Republicans, liberals and conservatives. On across the spectrum, I'm seeing more and more people think that their vote doesn't count, that there's powers that be, that we're being manipulated. And here are the two choices, but it's because special interests of either labor or business or trilateral commissioner, and I see it all the time. Actually, mainstream people think that powers that be want what we saw last night, and that's why we get what we want. And it really doesn't matter anyway, because somebody's behind them steering, big business interests or something. And so that concerns me for a variety of reasons. Can you tell me, does your voice matter? Let me ask it in this way. Are you one of the most 250,000 or 10 million? I don't care. What's your number? Who's influential in America?
I think that first, in order to answer your question, I need to know, are you talking about when it comes to electing the president? Is that?
Yeah. So for this construct, electing the president,
because I'm not talking about, an Amazon warehouse being built in your hometown, right? That I'm not talking about. I'm strict. My answer only applies to when it comes to electing a president, and the answer is everyone who votes.
Wow. So you're really going to 150 million, 100, whatever the number is, 100 million plus.
Yes, because the other thing is that we're the ones who decide what we do with our vote. All of the power that comes with our ballot also all of the constraints that we feel that we have on our power, all of the constraints we feel that there are on our ballot, they're all things that we have to accept. And you can just reject all of that. You know, like, I mean, it's the argument that people made when they said they wouldn't vote for Kucinich, Dennis Kucinich, or
I don't even remember
or
Dennis Kucinich.
or
I know
Jeb
his
Bush. When they were
Yeah,
saying
sure.
that they wouldn't vote for Jeb Bush for president because his last name is Bush, and therefore our choices were either Ted Cruz or Donald Trump, right? And you can just say, no, I'm still voting for Jeb Bush. You know, or the same can be true with Democrats in that year, where they said, like, we have to vote for either Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders. And no, you don't.
Well, so you're advocating your position, Professor. You're not voting for Trump, I'm pretty sure. Maybe you will privately. I don't know. But my instinct says you're not going to vote for Trump. And my guess is you'd have a hard time voting for Biden, especially after last night. So you'll probably either leave it blank or vote for some third party candidate or write in somebody's name. But I'm not trying to pin you down on how you'd vote. I don't really care. Well, I do care because we're friends, but as far as this podcast goes, I don't care. I am 100%, no matter what, not voting for Trump. I'm not doing it. And I'm not even a never Trumper. I'm a pro-constitutionalist. I just can't do that. I'm not doing that. Now, I was probably going to vote for Biden, but after last night, I don't know. So I'm stuck. I'm not frustrated because it's not my party. I'm not all at angst. I'm not all bent out of shape because I'm not one of those 1,000 or 10,000, or you argue 100 million people that get to decide who's the Democratic candidate. I have zero influence over that. I think I'm not, and I just don't. I know a bunch of Democrats. I know a couple of Democratic governors. I don't have any influence. I don't care what John Brackney thinks about who should be president on the Democratic side. I don't think. Anyway, so what is a candidate? So those are yours and my positions, and it may not be yours. Mine's accurate because I
would just
told
say
you
your
what mine.
Democratic friends should care. Like, they should want your vote more than, I mean, if there's any voter who's more important than any other, it's the people who are locked into Biden and Trump are the least powerful voters. So
now we're getting to my second theme.
If we're ranking the powerful voters, the people who Democrats should be listening to more than anybody else, they should be listening to John Brackney and Steve Tootle and Jake Peterson,
probably Bart, and a bunch of our other influencers.
Yeah, they should be listening to us, because we're the gettable voters.
Mm-hmm.
And that's who's going to decide who the next president is. But
not the four of us, but who are on the show. Yeah, there's only four of us on the conversation today.
But the other thing is we should
stop. Don't we represent 50 million
cheaply.
people? Wait, Professor, don't we represent 50 million, or maybe it's not high? Don't we represent 10 million people across America, the four of us?
Maybe more, because I think the number of gettable voters is probably closer to 70% of voters.
Oh, you're kidding. Everybody says, all the polls say that everybody's locked in. It's only 10% of voters.
No, I've never believed those numbers. I mean, true ideologues who are unmovable and can't, that number is always about 20-25% total, split between.
Everybody else is actually swayable. They may not say that to a pollster, but they truly are in the privacy of their own voting booth. They just do their own thing.
They have to be able to, in order to be gettable, they have to be able to tell themselves a story about themselves that they believe, and so, but they're gettable, you can, all you have to do is offer somebody a story that allows them to, say, well, I was always right. And okay,
let me
believe this or that,
I didn't think I'd I didn't think I'd run this by you, but let me run this by you real quick. My expertise is local politics. It's how I used to manage campaigns. It's how I got elected myself as the CEO of a local chamber. I just know local really, really well. And maybe that splashes over into some state politics and policy, but mostly it's local. You want to know Cherry Hills and Greenwood Village and Centennial and Littleton and Highlands Ranch, South Metro Denver. I'm one of your subject matter experts. I'm probably one of the top 10. I know this area. I know its issues. I know its people. I love local. And my story on this is including congressmen used to actually go door to door. Now, not every door, but they'd go symbolically to select neighborhoods so they could say they went to every neighborhood or whatever, and they knocked door. And I remember meeting congressmen at my little modest 1950 track house with my father. John, come here, my dad would say. And he goes, meet a congressman. And I'd go over there and meet a congressman who's running for office again, and we'd shake hands. And that was when I was a 6-year-old, so 1972. And so anyway, that got in my mind that you can get elected by being using your shoe leather and your handshake and showing up at the door. And I will assure you, after 40 years of experience, that if a candidate shows up at my door, and they still do, city council candidates, not usually county commissioner, but they'll knock at my door and say, hey, I'm running for city council. Would you consider supporting me? And if the other candidate doesn't, as long as the person's semi-rational, yeah, I'm going to support them because they took the time to show up at my door. That was the bond, is that, they worked hard enough to show up. It took time. I know it wasn't just my door. I saw them walk to the neighbor's door. Just shoe leather and a handshake counts. Is that your point?
Yeah, well, it worked for Calvin Coolidge. He would walk up to somebody's door and say, I'm Calvin Coolidge. I'm running for this. I want your vote. And then he would go to the next house, and he always won his elections.
But it didn't matter. It wasn't over. And I do this. It's not over abortion or guns or gays or God or taxes, because I know I'm going to disagree with a lot of stuff.
But I also, I have another way of getting at, I think, what I mean by most voters are gettable. Instead of thinking about politics, think about how many people after something, like how many people after World War II thought that World War II was a bad idea? How many people after the Nuremberg trials would retroactively say, well, of course I always supported World War II, and the answer is everybody wants to be on the winning side. So everybody that is capable of telling themselves a story that makes it so that they agree with you is a gettable voter. There are very few people who are so intransigent in some form of ideology that they are simply not gettable, that they're actually motivated by that belief system, because most people aren't motivated by a political belief system. So they're motivated by, it's a pluralistic series of motivations, not a single ideological motivation. So I think they're imminently gettable. I mean, as I was sitting here, I don't know if this is even possible, but because I was literally just thinking about this on the drive in. But I bet if No Labels were able to run Schwarzenegger in 50 states, he'd get 60% of the vote if the election were held a week from now.
Despite with his flaws and even with his...
No, just because he would be a reasonable candidate that isn't these two guys. And he has name recognition.
Right.
In other words, if we could, again, I'm setting up all kinds of hypotheticals, but imagine that the election were being held in a week and a half, and the three candidates were Biden, Trump, and Schwarzenegger, and Schwarzenegger was eligible in all 50 states. I bet he wins 60% of the vote.
Yeah, no, I think he would win overwhelmingly. I think you're right on that.
Can I ask you guys a quick question?
Yeah.
Along the lines of this, but it kind of goes off on a little bit of a different tangent. What I'd be curious to get your thoughts on is, we're kind of agreeing on the fact that neither of the two candidates for president should really win, you know,
Yeah.
which is really sad. Okay, but what can actually be done about that in June of an election year in light of the current circumstances? I mean, like, let's take the Democratic Party. Virtually all of the delegates for their national convention are pledged to Biden.
Yep.
They got to vote for him. The only way you could get Biden off the ticket right now is for Biden to basically say, okay, I'm stepping aside.
Yep.
The Republicans have a similar problem. Theirs is a little bit worse in a way because, I mean, people probably fear for their lives if they change their vote from Trump. So,
Yeah.
you know, what the heck
Unless,
do you do?
unless there
with
was a
this?
health issue and one of them, yeah, I mean,
Well, that's right. I mean, death would change things. But short of that, because that doesn't appear to be happening. You know, in prior years, way back, I don't know, say 40 years ago, it would be highly likely that one of these two candidates would be assassinated. Okay, that we have such a good Secret Service protection now that that's just not going to happen, really. So,
that's
what
an
do you?
interesting.
I don't know that they would be assassinated, but they simply, I think it's more likely that they would have had the sense and dignity to not run for office.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
somebody would have said, this is absurd. Of course you can't run for office. And of course we won't support someone like you.
And you mean Trump and Biden?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
But what do we do as citizens, knowing that this train wreck is going down the tracks? Is there anything we can do? I don't know. I'm kind of in John's camp with how many powerful people are there? You know, it's kind of like, I mean, I'm kind of powerful in a very, very small world, but I'm not powerful enough to tell Joe Biden not to run for president.
I mean,
You know?
if I were the no labels people, I'd be firing it up and saying, well, we now know that in a way, it's too bad that they made the determination not to run a candidate, because
Yeah.
now I don't know that they can get on the ballot everywhere where they need to get on the ballot. But I would be saying it's time for us to do whatever we can, and even if it means running a third party candidate who isn't on the ballot in all 50 states. Maybe he could get enough electoral votes to win outright, but not even not being on the ballot, because it's not going to be Kennedy. I mean, if nothing changes, Trump wins. So
let me ask another historical question. Humans often overreact. We see something and boom, everything's changed. And then all of a sudden, a couple days, a couple of weeks go and, oh, it hasn't changed. So this is one debate, Professor. Really? Come on, it's one debate. He may have had a bad night. I mean, I have my opinion on all this, but he did have a cold and his voice didn't sound feeble, and he did get better. Over the course of the debate, he got better. It started out brutal, and a couple of his comments, were intolerable. But he still got better. He's a Monty Python skit. I'm not quite dead yet. I mean, you get him back a little bit. So aren't we just overreacting to what we saw with our own eyes and ears last night? I mean, couldn't it change and Biden can still win?
I guess it's still possible.
Polls say 20.
Possible, but here's the thing. This was not he's been perfectly competent, and there have been no rumors of his mental and physical decline. It's exactly the opposite, which is, it turns out that Biden and his supporters have been lying to us, and all the people who were telling us about his decline were the ones telling us the truth. Because I mean, if I were the Trump campaign, I would take that clip of Biden trying, but I don't even know what you call it. That clip of him talking about where that ends with him saying we beat Medicare.
Yeah, that was weird.
And say, totally, this is unedited footage of the current president of the United States.
True. And Professor,
Trump 2024. Like that's what the ad.
fine, fine. And we still have the other candidate who's not promising to abide by the results of the election, who's
But
not
Jake,
promising.
you remember this, Jake, right? What did I say that Biden had to do in order to win last time? I said, put a piece of gaffer tape over his face, put him on a hand truck, wheel him out, let him say, I'm not Trump, then put the gaffer tape on and wheel him back and he'll win. That's what Trump now has to do to win.
Well, John, there were a couple layups for Biden. Okay. He was talking about, the moderators were like, what about January 6th? And will you accept the results of the election? Biden was given a layup, but he couldn't articulate an answer, and Trump just kind of let it breeze by.
Mhm.
Yep.
So
and Trump did the one thing, I would say, like, the thing that a lot of people who are, let's say, Trump skeptical have been saying, well, the reason I won't vote for Trump is because he won't renounce political violence and he won't accept the results of election. Well, he did last night. He did both of those things. So if that was the reason you were holding out your support for Trump is because of those two things, well, he just told you last night, no, I renounce all, he said something like, I shouldn't have to say this, but of course I renounce all political violence. And of course I will accept the results of the election, And so now that is for a lot of people who were less skeptical about Trump, but who were still not going to vote for him. Like, again, the gettable voters, like
For low information voters, you're entirely correct.
Trump just won 3 I shouldn't say border states, but 3 swing states with that statement, because the margin of victory in 3 swing states is probably 70 or 80,000 votes, and he probably got it by making that statement.
Okay, I'll even accept all this. I stipulate to your theory. I'm with you. Dobbs. I'm sorry, there is a huge underswell of women and people that love women that ain't supporting Trump because they're gonna stick it back to them because it's their body, their autonomy. They don't want government involved in their private life.
Yeah, but they only get to vote once. They only
right. They're not going to vote for Trump.
Yeah,
they ain't voting for Trump.
Right. Again, they are the ungettable 20%.
No, there's way more than that.
Nope, because most people on the issue of abortion, 80% of Americans are right where Trump is.
Well, based off his comments last night.
Based on what he said last night.
Yeah.
And then you compare it to whatever Biden said last night. Like,
Trump became pro-choice last night, not pro-life. He was pro-choice last night.
Well, he's pro-life and pro-choice in the way that most Americans are.
And most Americans are, yeah. Okay,
well,
we're on
John, again, that was another layup question for Biden. Yeah. He could have talked about what his administration was going to do, but then he fumbled the football and he talked about an illegal immigrant like raping someone.
Yeah, that's another one of those. Like, play the clip of that. Like, what is he talking about? Like,
it's usually what Trump talks about.
Well, you just think about, like, when my ex-wife worked for that a shelter or a service, an entity that ran several women's shelters and stuff. The way Biden talked about rape and sexual assault, like, I can't remember his exact words, but it was like, no one's getting raped. Like, do you think that same pro-choice voter has the same amount of enthusiasm for Biden after he said that? Because of course, they're gonna probably vote for him, but
holding their nose.
Yeah, but
it was a complete mess for everybody. I'm with you. All right, so Professor, there's a lot of down friends I have, and I like them because they're friends. But I mean, on the Democratic liberal side of my friends, they are truly bummed out and scared and nervous and think America's gone to hell. that we have these two candidates, particularly their guy, Biden, and they're aghast and they're ashamed, or not ashamed. They're scared that Trump's
Yeah.
going to get elected again.
Well, the
And they think
Democrats
America's
are also,
on hell.
yeah. Well, it's the Spiro Agnew problem also, you know.
Okay, that doesn't mean anything to me. What's that mean?
Well, that Kamala Harris is the VP. You know, as long as Spiro Agnew was Richard Nixon's vice president, nobody wanted Richard Nixon to resign. So the only reason why a lot of Democrats don't want Biden to resign is because Harris is the alternative. I mean, that's why I sort of go to somebody like a Newsom, because he's the only person also, even though he doesn't have huge name ID outside of California, like one debate with Newsom and he's in it. You know, if
you wanted to include Buttigieg in that?
No, I don't think Buttigieg has quite the broad. I mean, one of the things that's incredible about Newsom, for being the most outrageous anti-law, running a sort of failed state, you know, the fact that he can, Buttigieg has principles and and therefore there are things he will not say.
Right.
And whereas Newsom would get up and if it was like, oh, you need to say that you love guns and you want to close the border, like he would get up and say that in a debate, but he would find some way of it's kind of like he's a combination of Bill Clinton and Dick Morris. You know, imagine if Dick Morris and Bill Clinton were one person, and they kind of, and he looks like, but handsome.
He's fairly handsome. I'll give you that. I don't know him besides that, but yeah, he's articulate and handsome, but I don't know the guy.
Yeah, and he only falls apart if you have to talk to him for more than 2 minutes. But there's nobody who can spin for 150 seconds better than Newsom.
Fascinating.
Now,
Interesting.
Put him in a long form interview. If you want to hear a revealing interview with Gavin Newsom, listen to the interview he did with Adam Carolla a few years ago. It's become famous because I don't know why he agreed to this interview, but Adam Carolla just destroyed him on issue after issue. But it's because Carolla wouldn't let him go when he would say something, and he kept probing for depth, and you realize, oh, there is no depth there. But on a debate stage, nobody would ever
Professor, I don't think I'm going to listen to it because I'm fairly confident, absent a health issue. I don't want to even go where Bart mentioned a couple minutes ago, but I think health issue.
And I take back what I said. It was hypothetical.
Yeah, I know. Still, I don't even like thinking about that. But absent a health issue, I think it's going to be Biden and Trump. Agree or disagree?
If Biden is alive, and I just don't.
Biden is alive. You think he's going to have a health issue?
I still have a part of me who thinks that Biden, and maybe it's his wife, like somebody who actually cares about him needs to tell him it's over. And
by the way, that's why I keep harping is the right word, harping on how many powerful people there are, because there's got to be a certain percentage of those powerful people, and there must be 50 is my guess. They're going, it's over, Biden, you got to get out, and they're trying to debate on how they tell him or who they tell or how they get.
He doesn't listen to the Democratic Party at all. He has a group of people around him who are his people, who have been with him for 30 and 40 years. Like, this is a guy who's been in politics for 50 years, right? And even his young staffers have been with him for 10 years, and they're family, and they don't tell him anything that he doesn't want to hear. And the only person who he really listens to is probably his wife. So
Dr. Biden is the
I
most
think-
influential person in America.
Yeah, I think that if his wife tells him that he has to resign, then he might do it.
And why would she do that? By the way, I kind of like Jill, by the way, but why would she do that?
Well, like I said, what you would hope is that there's some residual patriotism in either of the Bidens, that
Or sense
some part of them,
legacy, maybe?
yeah, some part of them would tell them like what's best for the country is for you to step aside.
And that can't happen with Trump, by the way, right? We're only talking Biden. No
Well,
one in
right,
the
because I don't think Biden is, or I don't think Trump is that patriotic. I don't think he cares about America
I agree.
enough to ever
Well,
even consider.
John.
Yeah,
did
Jake,
you watch
rip into
any
me
of-
however you wish to.
John, did you watch any of the post-debate analysis at all?
Pieces and parts, yes.
Okay, so I watched the debate on CNN. I pulled it up on YouTube last night, and
Yeah.
then I watched the post-debate analysis. A good deal of the analysts are former Obama staffers, like pretty high
Okay.
up people. The first words out of their mouth is, "This is a disaster."
Yeah. No,
Okay.
across the board, high and low
Well-
level. I agree with you.
No, but this means that they worked with Biden back when he was VP, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay? And they all said, like, Biden needs to drop out, but then they said, well, this has to be his decision. Okay. And they're like, it doesn't matter what we're going to do because Biden has wanted to be president his entire life. And Biden's campaign staff came out and they published a statement in The Hill this morning. And they said Biden is not going to drop out of this race. So it goes back to what Toodle's saying. He needs his wife, who is probably the only person who he'll listen to tell him, you need to drop out. Well, you know what Dr. Jill Biden said last night?
Oh, you don't like her. Look at that sneer in your voice. I like her. You don't like her. What's wrong with Jill Biden?
I don't care. I just think it's
Well, then don't
stupid.
sneer when you say doctor.
No. I just think that it's stupid that Biden refers to his wife as Dr. Jill Biden every time he talks about her. Like,
Yeah,
if
fair
my
enough.
wife got a PhD, I would introduce her to a crowd, but then I wouldn't say Dr. Jill Biden. What?
Let me just correct you on this, though. She does not have a PhD. She
Yeah.
has
Oh,
a
yeah,
doctorate
she's like
in
a
education.
school teacher or something.
Yeah, yeah.
Wait, oh, she's a doctor of education or something.
Yeah,
she's
has
got
an
like an
ED.
ED.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But-
well, it's still a doctor, but I got you. Okay, God,
Well,
we're
so then-
really into the weeds on this. Keep
Yeah.
Well,
going.
it's sort of a joke that the only people
yeah.
in life who ever say, call me doctor are the education doctorates.
Right.
They're
Yeah,
the
I
only
know.
people I know who ever insist
Little
on
friends
it.
of mine make fun of me for saying professor all the time. I should call you Steve, and I get you, but it's a matter of respect. Anyway, keep going, Jake.
Well, so anyways, Dr. Jill Biden toted President Biden out on stage and then said, you did such a good job. You answered every question. She said you answered every question. Okay. That's how you talk to elementary school students. Oh, you did such a good job. You answered every question. Okay. So as of right now, the only person that can talk Biden out of running for re-election is not on board. So the Democrats are looking for a bloodbath in November.
Yeah, I hear you, but we're also against the guy who is aced. Nobody's ever aced this cognitive test as good as me. I have aced this cognitive test, and it was an amazing test.
But John, no one cares about anything Trump said when they, pan over to Biden and he can't string a sentence together.
And
Okay?
I haven't watched any of this, but a lot of the commentary was focused on the split screen, how Biden looked when he wasn't talking.
I watched.
Apparently very
I
bad.
watched.
I haven't seen it yet, so
I have.
I watched the
Yeah.
whole thing too. It was not pretty.
was it as bad as what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's worse. No, if
It's
I would have
worse.
just, I kind of want to go back to and I know we're almost done here, but the Nixon Kennedy debates, because if I would have just read the transcript, and I know the transcript would be brutal too, Jake, I get it. There was a couple segments there that were brutal. I'd hate one funny thing I saw was I'd hate to be the transcriber, the person that types in the closed captioning, because what do you type? It was pretty bad. I get it. But the video is horrible. The audio was really bad. The transcript would have been the best, but it was still bad. It was a bad.
The transcript would be completely incoherent.
Well,
Because
no,
of
not as bad as
audio
the video.
clues and emphasis and stuff.
I
If
know.
you were to read the transcript of this debate, it would.
Okay, but I got to jab back.
Yeah.
Professor, that is not true. On Ukraine and NATO and Dobbs, and you can go and Social Security, you can go through a lot of issues. On the substance, Trump is in the wrong way with those 70% of Americans who would willing to go. Trump is in the wrong path. And if you read the transcript and look and compare the policy,
But is he speaking in complete sentences?
Well,
only sometimes. Only
I'm saying, does he
sometimes.
have subject verb, verb agreement? Do these have? If you were trying to, how many of these sentences, if you were transcribing them, wouldn't end with an ellipsis?
Yeah, I know. Go ahead, Jake. Rip into me one more time.
And then 2024. Okay, if I can pull up the debate on YouTube, I'm not going to read the transcript. Okay.
Touché.
I mean, the post-debate analysis from CNN, they were panicking, and then I watched the post-debate analysis from the Dispatch, which you can do if you're a subscriber. So I watched it on YouTube as well. Okay, pretty much the entirety of the post-debate analysis from the Dispatch. You can pick a lot of holes in Trump's arguments, and I did that during the debate. My non-political wife watched the entire debate and all of the post-analysis with me, which I never thought she was going to do. And I was picking holes in Trump's arguments, but the fact that he lied a lot and had terrible arguments doesn't matter when his opponent is incoherent.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Okay, so that's the age issue that people have been talking about ever since Biden ran in 2020. And the Democrats didn't take a hint. And if they had put forward anyone else, they would have beat Trump. Okay. If they truly believe that Trump is an existential threat to democracy, why are they putting forth an 82-year-old man?
Well, and it's not just his age, because there are a lot of 82-year-olds out there who I think would be fine. But it is absolutely shocking that the main reason that Biden won in the first place is because it was unimaginable that anybody could be worse than Trump. And what we saw last night was someone who was worse than Trump. Like, they managed to do it somehow. It is like, how did you manage to find something worse than bad, amoral, immoral, a combination of amoral, immoral, bad,
criminal,
incompetence, and you're like, we see it. We've got something way worse than that. It's almost impossible to imagine this combination.
So let me end on a positive note. I am actually not frustrated and sad about America. I'm not thinking we're vulnerable as a superpower because of this debate or who's going to be our next president. I have very strong opinions on who should be our next president. I did before the debate. But anyway, I'm not down. You think I'm wrong? Should we be scared as a country over?
You should be scared about our political, our media, and our educational institutions.
I'll accept that.
But you should not be scared about America. And and I'll say this: I went to a wedding, which is a very life-affirming, thing to be doing while the rest of the country is watching this debate. And what I was really struck by is just how many good people there are in the world.
Ain't that the truth?
You're looking at this wedding, this beautiful ceremony that's taking place, and the other thing you're looking at is the faces of all the people watching them who want, and how many good and kind and generous and decent people there are who want nothing more than for these two people to be in love and lead a wonderful, adventurous life together. And that's what almost everybody in America is like. And I've got no fears about that. It's our political institutions, it's our media institutions, it's our educational institutions. That's
excellent.
what we should be afraid of. And what I'm hoping will happen is what has happened several times in our past, is that the American people are going to fix this. that these institutions are going to collapse, and something hopefully new, better, different is going to rise, and hopefully it's going to be based on the wisdom of our revolutionary fathers that did correctly identify human nature and the institutions necessary to allow them to lead, peaceful and prosperous lives of love and kindness towards one another.
Lovely. What a great way to end. Let's end with that, unless Bart or Jake want to. Oh yeah, you want to ruin his great soliloquy? That was a beautiful speech, Jake.
No, I'm gonna add on to it.
Okay.
So I've been on vacation for a couple weeks, and I spent a couple days in New York City. Okay. I'd never been to New York before, and the only thing I'd ever really heard about New York was from Republicans bashing on it in the media. Everything that has been said about New York City by Republicans in the media is a complete lie. I do not deny that there might be incidents of people getting attacked on the subway, but they're taking isolated incidents in a city of 8.2 million people and superimposing it on the entire city. Okay. Like, I didn't feel like I was in some Democratic hellscape. I just felt like I was in a really cool part of America, walked around Central Park, talked to random people. We had common interests that we discussed. No one mentioned politics. And the thing that, Tootle brings up is the more I travel around the country, I don't really see us as being separated into Republican, Democrat, good, bad, whatever. We're just Americans trying to live our lives. And so long as you don't bring up politics and just talk about common interests, which politics is very depressing, like, life is going great in the country. Okay, apart from the institutions that Tootle listed that do need to get fixed, life is going well in America. And whether Trump or Biden wins in November, life will move on.
Yeah, you know what? My wife just walked in, so I'm doing this just so she can beat me up when you guys leave. What you need, Jake, is a motorcycle.
Yeah, let's go, Jake. I'll meet you out there. We can start.
Because when you're telling that story,
rides under us. You know what an iron butt is? It's where you do 1,000 miles in a day.
In a day.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, Jake, when you were explaining what you thought about New York, I just thought what a beautiful thing it would be when you're on a bike, and Professor Tootle's stories about him traveling around on his motorcycle and meeting people and how everybody helps. You need a bike, Jake, and Meredith's going to rip into me. She won't let me own a bike. So anyway, Bart, do you want to interrupt Professor Tootle's or Jake's great speeches?
No, I think that's a great place to end.
Okay. Well, we didn't even get to the Supreme Court. And we've got a couple big cases, and we've got one that still, I guess, hasn't come out, maybe next week. But it's an important case, and it may affect the outcome of the election as well. So we'll talk about that either next week or the following week. Is that okay, Professor?
Yeah, but I have a prediction, which is it won't.
That's probably a very safe prediction.
Yeah, it should, but you're right. It probably won't. Okay. Well, anyway, I'm going to end on your positive speech. Is that okay?
Yeah, end it wherever you want.
All right. Welcome home. Glad you got home safe. And Jake, thanks for visiting Colorado and not even saying hi. Bart and I next time want to see you. Why don't you and Professor, why don't you come plan a trip out when Jake comes out, and we'll get a group and we'll do a debate or something. We'll have
I'm probably going to go on a ride the 3rd through the 10th, and I don't know where I'm going yet. So I might go up to visit
July.
Yeah. Probably up to, I'm going to try and make it up. I always try to get up to like Idaho and Yellowstone, and I never make it, but it's going to be something like 117 degrees here, and I want to be somewhere else.
If you come through Colorado, make sure you tell us, because we'll try to entertain you.
Yeah, if I go that far south, because I want to try and go north, and then, but like I always say, weather and weather might drive me down to Denver Centennial, and you might find me at a brew pub saying, "Hey, let's get everybody together."
All right.
Yeah.
You tell us and we'll join you.
All right. Sounds good.
We don't want to say when you're going to do that, so we can pause recording before we get you all your trackers after you.
Uh-oh, yeah.
All right. Professor, thanks for your comments. Hey, Jake, will you ponder, and Bart too, maybe there must be a good way we can take a couple quotes out of these videos and do a little, not a PowerPoint, whatever it is, but like a meme, and there was a couple really interesting comments that the professor made. And your thoughts are okay too, except when you're ripping into me. Okay, we're going to stop the recording.
All right.
You all have a great day. Appreciate you being here.
Good to see you guys.
See you soon. I don't know how to get us out of here, Bart. God, this